Hey y'all, I'm Bruce. We're live from Sound and Music with our show this Wednesday at 6, as we are 3 out of 4 weeks every month. Tonight we're going to do something different. We're going to call it Record-O-Rama, where with my expert panel we're going to talk about some really fine record albums. And on my left, Mr. Ross Girardi.
Hey, Bruce.
And on my right, Doc.
Sup?
And Whiskey Rat. So how y'all doing?
Pretty good.
Now, how did you find, because we kind of set this up, the idea was everybody picks 3 albums, and we all listen to them, and then whoever picked the album talks about it a bit, and then we will quiz you on it or ask questions or give our deep thoughts with our intellectual firepower. Are you feeling fired up?
Yeah.
Okay, good. You, Ross?
I am.
All right, I'll start it off with the new reissue of the Rolling Stones Goat's Head Soup Deluxe.
Tasty.
It has a book. It has posters. I'm not going to take them out. It has all kinds of goodies. But mostly what it is the Stones' 1973 album, remixed by Giles Martin, who remixed the Beatles albums lately. Why remix an album, you might say? Well, you don't have to. I would still always want to have a copy of the original Goat's Head Soup, but that album was recorded in interesting conditions in Jamaica in a somewhat not super great studio, and the sound on that album has always been kind of murky, and that's always been a complaint about it. Exile on Main Street, the album before, is known for having atmosphere and some murk, but Goat's Head Soup is really murky, except of course for the single Angie, which was crystal clear. Go figure that out. But anyway, a lot of good songs on the album. Not an album a lot of people talk about, though. And I think what I feel like with Giles's remix is you get to hear some of the instruments much clearer. There's still atmosphere to it, but you get to hear especially Mick Taylor's lead guitar work more on it. So that's interesting. There are also some bonus tracks. There's a track called Scarlet that really isn't from those sessions, but it's kind of around that time period they worked with Jimmy Page, so that's kind of interesting. The really good bonus track is called Crisscross Man, which should have been on the original album, but wasn't, but it's a rockin' track. The other advantage to the box set is you also get a live set from Belgium from the Stones' 1973 tour, and it's a kickin' show. So that is worth it for the price of admission, or you can stream it or whatever. But anyway, I have some personal history with this album because it was the 1970s when I first started buying albums, and I'd go to the Rolling Stones bin, and being a little fearful and from a conservative area, I looked at this album and said, if I buy this album, my dad is going to think I'm gay. So that was a deal.
Or a devil worshiper.
Yeah, or a devil worshiper with the goat. I could show you on this side. So I did not actually buy this album till I felt comfortable with the world when I was in college. So it took me a while. I think I bought like Black and Blue instead, which really wasn't much better as far as the whole thing. But I was like, man, Mick's wearing a veil. He looks like a bride. I'm never going to hear the end of this. So that's kind of how things were back in the mid to late 70s. But we've all hopefully worked past that. So what do you have to say, Ross?
I listened to it on Apple Music, which is available there. Sounds great. And so Angie was the big hit. Mm-hmm. What was the second one? Do Heartbreaker. Heartbreaker, yes. That's well done on that.
That's a hot track with some Billy Preston clavinet on it.
So I enjoyed it, really enjoyed it.
And it's kind of interesting because that song is like you're listening to it like, 50 or 40 years later, and it actually has lyrics about a innocent person being killed by a policeman.
Exactly, yeah.
So
it's amazing.
Still pretty current on a lot of stuff. What do you think, Doc?
Well, in that regard, that was pretty striking because history does, in fact, repeat itself. So it's kind of funny how that works out. But I think for me, Crisscross was really fun because I listened to it on Spotify, and it had a couple of the live versions you were talking about it, and that live version of Jumpin' Jack Flash was pretty dope. Had a lot of fun with that. But mostly listening to it, though, I was at the gym working out, and surprisingly, or maybe not so much so, but surprisingly, the Stones is a pretty good workout. As long as you're not going super hard. It's just like chill. You can kind of hang back into it as you know, do your calisthenics.
Now, there is the drug ballad that's actually a pretty good one by Keith Richards on the album called Coming Down Again, Go Figure.
Yeah.
Did that mess up your workout, or could you get through that?
I did, actually. I was on trying to do like the assisted pull-ups.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of worked out because I'm really slow with it.
It was those, coming down again.
yeah, exactly. And then like, you know, trying to pull back up. You know.
Yeah, this was the album where, well, one of the albums in the mid-70s where Keith was losing his teeth due to heroin use. He was there, but you can hear him playing. He still did some good music, but, you know, album does not reach the Exile or Sticky Fingers heights, but it's still a really solid album.
Oh, no, for sure. I think one of those kind of like underrated things, because you only ever hear like people doing Gimme Shelter and stuff like that, that you don't realize they actually have a lot of other really good original material. And stuff that's not just covers. I mean, they kick ass at their covers, but still, you know.
And it has one of my favorite rude rock and roll songs on it, Star Star, also known as Star.
Right,
And,
I forgot about that.
And yeah, okay, it's not very politically correct, but it's still hilarious and it still rocks. It's like Chuck Berry times 10 on that one, so that's always been a favorite. I also like, a lot of people don't like Dancing with Mr. D.
I thought that was actually kind of fun.
Got that
though.
voodoo graveyard imagery, kind of always reminded me of that James Bond film where they have the scene in the voodoo cemetery.
Yeah.
So a lot of people thought that song was kind of hokey at the time for the horror imagery, but it's got such a great guitar riff and it's kind of swampy, so I like that one.
And see, I'm a fan of swampy stuff, so that was like one of those like, hey, you almost forget all the extra influences and those blues influences, you know, that the Stones had.
Yeah.
So it's really cool there.
I like it.
You like it?
Thumbs up.
I like the reissue. You don't have to go the full Monty, but I'm a Super Stones fan.
Now, I have to say, Bruce,
Really?
that just came out this year, so you already...
like 2 months ago, a month ago. Yeah, I got
You
it.
didn't hesitate to get the full...
I don't
I
have
guess
the
for some
vinyl. The
people-
vinyl's supposed to be really good. I will say the mastering is pretty hot on this. I would have not liked it not mastered as loud as commercial pop, but it's still a really good listen. And if you get the vinyl, I think you get more dynamic range on it from what I've read.
All in all, that's a pretty good reason for you to break quarantine.
Great quarantine for the Stones. Keith,
Yes.
what do you have for me, Doc?
Oh, shoot. Okay, so the first record, I always gotta give a shout out to my boy, Chris Cornell. So he had a record back in 2009 called Scream. Now, I was doing basic training in my first year in the Army when that came out, so I kind of missed it on that first wave, but there were a lot of reviews of people like, oh my God, like this album sucks. Like, what the hell did he do? Because, you know, coming from Soundgarden and coming from Audio Slave and, you know, the first two solo albums, just third one, I was like, okay, well, you know, whatever, let me go ahead and check it out. And then I was like, wait, what? But the thing was, I thought it was brilliant. It was it's nothing like what, you know, he's known for doing and the crazy screams and all the, you know, the guttural rock and roll. It's essentially a pop album that was also produced with Timbaland. Now, I knew Timbaland's sound because I'm a big fan of him anyway. So to find out, oh, you were on this record, you know, like produced this record, I was like, hey, this is really great. So I gave it a whole listen, and what I appreciate about it was that it was so different. And I think a lot of people, as casual fans or as regular fans, you forget to separate the artist like from the band, because all in all, you know, Chris Cornell is a songwriter and for his own stuff and for numerous, and you don't write the same with each, you know, project or group or whatever he was in. You don't write the same or do the same stuff for each thing. So I like to be able to appreciate an artist stepping out from their comfort zone because they wanted to. So it's not like, oh, I'm gonna make this record and now everyone hates it. He's like, I'm gonna make this record because I want to make it. I know it's probably not gonna be received very well, you know, by like my diehard fans. But I think also too, it opens up some of the fans to other stuff for one, and then as an introduction to someone else who might not even ever listen to rock music to say, okay, this dude did this. Okay, what else did he do? And then you go and you're like, oh, well, all right, you know. So it kind of just out of the ordinary, out of the blue, came out of nowhere for me.
Yeah, I figured you were curveballing us when you put that one in there.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah.
So Ross, when you think of Soundgarden with Chris Cornell, what do you think
Yeah,
of?
so I mean, Soundgarden, alternative rock, 99.1 up in DC back in
Yeah.
the 90s, which I always listened to.
Lots of guitars.
Lots of guitars, lots of drums, but yeah, I agree with what you said. Having that range and doing something new for any artist or even actors, they normally get locked into one type of role, but then you see them doing something else, and it opens it up to a wider audience and shows they've got better range than we might have thought. So
Yeah, not everybody wants to be AC/DC and make the same great album 20 times,
Right.
which is a valid choice with them, by the way.
I mean, whatever works for you.
But-
But how'd you all feel about the hidden track, or did you make it to the hidden track?
I don't think I heard that one. I got there was like a 7-minute track. I'm not sure I got the hidden track. Tell me about it.
Okay, so that's actually a straight blues. Like, there's no bluesy type of thing. No, it's a straight blues song. This kind of, sitting in the bar, actually called 2 Drink Minimum, but then he renamed later on as Hope and Promise Fade. But basically, this whole story about this guy, sitting in the bar thinking about his life and going over his life, I'm 2 drinks away from crying. And it was like, again, one of those kind of poignant things that you don't expect to hear out of him. And then you just listen to, it's like, damn, if he does this song, I would love to hear him have, sing some Sam Cooke. I think I've heard him do Otis Redding cover, heard him do Prince cover, Michael Jackson cover, and all that. But it's like, I want to really hear him, take on these old Motown, just because their voice, the strong voice and the timbre for just doing so much. I don't know, I just love the wide variety. So at the end of Watch Out, that's the last track listed. Just keep it playing, and then 2 Drink Minimum pops in as a hidden track.
Okay, well, thanks for busting us on the quiz there. But anyway, so my thoughts are Chris Cornell, brilliant singer, lyricist, writes great melodies, made lots of rock albums and said to himself, hey, why don't I do something different? And I think that's a valid artistic choice working with Timbaland. And, if you're expecting any guitars, they ain't happening on this album, okay?
Well, not in the way that you expect.
Not in the way you would expect.
More of like a...
Subtle.
Yeah.
Lots of beats, lots of synths, lots of treated vocals on some things. Not his lead vocals.
No.
But like some.
Just like it's like effects for enhancement, opposed to the way you might hear people do auto tune for the sake of auto tune. It's like it's tasteful. I'll say that. It's tasteful.
Now, as I remember when this album came out, it was controversial, like Doc said, and it sold a ton the first week and then just dropped off the frickin' charts because all the Soundgarden and guitar guys were like, what the hell? Where's the beef? So, so in a way, the thing about the album is there's some really strong melodies on it. I think there are a lot of strong lyrics on it. It's just, and his voice is awesome, and I think it's just in a different setting, and it, if you haven't heard it, it blows your mind when you stereotype him as the Soundgarden guy.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I don't think he lost any integrity as far as lyrics or art on the thing. What would I say about it? I would say, well, there were a couple things, like, there's some songs like Take Me Alive.
Yeah.
Where I would love to hear a rock version of that song. It's got that cool Middle Eastern influenced melody and great chord changes, great lyrics, and I'd like to hear like a crunch version. So where I would have liked to maybe heard the album a little different is mix up the beats and the keyboards with some more overt guitar to create a mix that way. But of course, it wasn't my choice. So.
But no, actually, I'll go with it on a couple of things. Yeah, for sure.
And so. My rating would be A+ for artistic integrity and trying to try something new. There's a saying they used to have with Special Olympics, and their motto was, this is back in the 80s, I think probably changed it. It was brave in the attempt. So I would rate this album brave in the attempt from me.
Okay, and that's fair, So I would say if you're gonna listen to it, try not to listen to it as a rock fan. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Now that's actually brings up a good point, because when y'all turn in your album choices, I'm basically a rock guy. I listen to jazz and a lot of other things, But what was really hit home to me was when you're having to do active listening to music, you have to really like get your head in the right space of that music because, you know, when you had Mobb Deep is on your list, we'll discuss in a while. But I've been listening to like indie guitar rock, and then I got to get my head in the space where I can appreciate and understand and the same thing with, you know, some of the other choices y'all made. So kind of made me, sometimes you just have to take a deep breath and get yourself in a different space when you change genres like that.
Yeah.
So that was
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
What do you have for us, sir?
Well, I think maybe with the theme of a group that's doing one thing and then switches, let's talk about The Doors and L.A. Woman,
Okay.
which in some regards, in my opinion, could be really showing their deep blues influence for the first time. I mean, it's always there, and it's always there in rock and roll, but I think it's pretty explicit in L.A. Woman. And it's also was Jim Morrison's last studio album.
The Swan Song.
Yes.
Yeah, so, you know, pretty important. L.A. Woman, the title was the big hit. But if you listen to it, almost every song on there is pretty amazing, I think. Even like The Changeling, song number 1, pretty amazing.
L'America.
L'America, yeah.
It's a effing trip. Like, literally, it is a trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even Texas Radio and the Big Beat.
Yeah.
All of that is just amazing, but, you know, strong blues presence. And, you know, they had to step out there because their fans thought of them doing one thing, and they were in the hard rock and roll, you know, space. And then they come out with kind of a bluesy rock.
Add a little bit of that swamp feel.
Yeah.
And some of those
Because you
things
got
too, yeah.
Cars Hiss By My Window.
With
and
the sonic boom.
Yeah.
Been Down So Goddamn Long. All that thing.
Yeah, so all of that's like Jim, and it also highlights Jim's lyrics and poetry.
Yeah.
Because most of that's right out of Jim's poetry notebooks, which is really how the Doors started in the first place. You know, on Venice Beach, he's out there writing poetry on the beach, and Ray Manzarek runs into him, and they start up a conversation. Manzarek looks at his book of poems. He's like, "Hey, man, we need to get a band
Do
going."
some things,
I mean, that's
yeah.
the simplified version, but essentially that's what happened. You know, it's based on Jim's poetry, which brought him to where they ended up. You know,
What do you think?
I was going to say with that, it makes me wonder, you know, of course, with his reputation between the drinking and the drug use and all that, while he was writing certain things, like was he on something in particular, you know?
yeah,
Because like I said, the way it comes off like with the band, it really is a trip.
Yeah.
Like some things, there's like a certain amount of cohesion, but there's a lot of extra looseness that kind of takes you elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? That's so distinct from, you know, you listen to LA Woman as the single, and you're thinking you know what this album is about,
Right.
and then, you know, you look at it, like I said, L'America or Hyacinth House, and you're just like,
Yeah.
wait, what?
Yeah, because everybody's used to L.A. Woman and Riders on the Storm.
Yeah.
And there's
yeah.
a whole lot of other good
Yeah.
tunes there.
And then if you really want to get blown away, listen to the American Prayer, which is Jim's poetry put to some music, but it's mainly just Jim just going off on his poems, and it's pretty hardcore.
Well, one thing I like about L.A. Woman is I think it's kind of the sound of the band rediscovering themselves and having fun.
Yeah.
Because let's just say Jim could be difficult.
Yeah.
I've heard, perhaps read,
Allegedly.
seen in movies, whatever.
Right.
And in this case, they got the albums before had been a little difficult to make, even when they came out good. But on L.A. Woman, they kind of went for a live feel on a lot of the songs, and they actually had extra musicians. They had a rhythm guitar player, I believe Mark Beno, and then they had a bass player, Jerry Sheff, who played with Elvis.
Yeah.
And they sat in on the sessions, and that reduced the pressure. They didn't have to do overdubs. They played a lot of it live.
Mm-hmm.
The legend is Jim sang the L.A. Woman vocal from the bathroom. Don't know if
believe
it's
that.
true. I don't know if it's true, but it could be.
I can believe
It's a
that.
good story, and stories are almost as important as the music in rock and roll. But anyway, and it's a really, actually, I would say L.A. Woman is the lowest fi song on the thing as far
Yeah.
as sound.
Yeah.
It's a pretty audiophile album as far as a rock album on a lot of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good sounding song too.
Yeah.
But, you know, Riders on the Storm and all that. So it's kind of like a nice swan song wrapping up the Doors' legacy,
Yeah.
reminding you that they should not have made the 2 albums. After that, they made without Jim.
Hindsight's 2020, isn't it?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you lose the lead singer, you might not want. I mean, God bless them though. They did them. But
Yeah.
so what else, guys? Anything else on that one?
Yeah, actually, I'm of course will go back and listen to that again because like that one was one of the ones doing the listening that I was actually able to just lay back on the couch. And
Yeah.
listen.
It
That's-
just get taken.
Yeah, I think that's best consumed on the sofa
Yeah.
for sure.
Very cool.
All right, cool. Well, now I'm going to talk about one of my favorite albums. Ha ha ha. The Gun Club, one of the loves of my life. This is the Miami album, their second album from 1982. Mysterious looking, it's like there's something evil on the horizon and the band can't stand to look at it. And then on the back, they're holding up a cross to it. Gun Club music, always dark. No happy birthdays in the Gun Club, not at all. Basically, they were a swamp blues, at first, kind of a punk blues outfit, kind of Ramonesy guitars, but with slide from LA. They were contemporaries of X. The singer had a darker worldview. Part of his whole thing that somebody gave Jeffrey Lee Pierce, the singer-songwriter, guitar player on half of it, some advice. They said, Jeffrey, you should write about what makes people uncomfortable.
Nailed it.
And yeah, this will make you uncomfortable. But it's not cartoonish because a lot of it's really from the American blues, country, dark side mythos, murder ballads, things like that. But it's all rockin'. And this album is particularly strong on the songwriting, particularly strong on the vocals. Where it fell, well, anyway, the album before this, Fire of Love, was a big hit for Ruby Slash, and Slash was one of the big independent record labels back then. And they were actually like going around the country and making money touring on their first tour, which is really rare. So it was a really strong seller for an independent record at that time. This one came out, they got a record deal with Chris Stein of Blondie, and Blondie herself sings on a lot of this. But he had his own little record imprint called Animal Records. The band moved to New York, they did the album. I don't know if they were messed up or just made bad choices or were trying to do like a raw sounding album. But when the album came out, everybody said, the songs are great, singing, the playing's great. It sounds like it's recorded under wool. So I think it was more the mixing. From what I read going back, it was like they put the instruments at one level and said, we'll put the voice up high. And like, but I always really loved the album, but listening to it again on vinyl, I actually kind of like the production now because his vocal is so far out front and he's singing so strongly. So back then it was kind of like, what were these guys thinking? And yeah, it probably was a mistake at the time, but now I find it endearing. It's got lots of good songs on it. Calling Up Thunder, Devil in the Woods, of course, Fire of Love, Sleeping in Blood City, a nice country ballad at the end called Mother of Earth that's been covered by some country artists, actually. It's got the traditional John Hardy on here, traditional Watermelon Man.
I got that cover that Run Through the Jungle.
Yeah, and Run Through the Jungle in a very evil version of what was already an evil song. So, the thing is, it's not cartoony like heavy metal lyrics about the dark side. It's actually thoughtful with really good imagery straight in the American tradition. So, punk, blues, country. Later they went a little more esoteric. Those later albums are good too, but definitely one of my, I'd say, top 20 albums of all time. Mm-hmm. It's just me.
Is Fire Spirit on that one, Bruce?
Fire Spirit's on the first album.
That's right.
Here, you may look at it.
Yeah, let me see that again.
As I was going to say with that, I guess you could relate to something today because it'd be more psychobilly. So because I didn't get hip to Gun Club when they were, first popular and whatnot, I listened to that, and it's almost like because I think so many people have done the kind of lo-fi fuzz, and as a matter of fact, a lot of the times that lo-fi fuzz is coming back, you don't think that, like it wasn't on purpose. You don't realize, okay, well, maybe they did kind of mess up on it a bit, but it actually sounds so natural, given today's standard of music. But I like, again, the swamp things that kind of did drew
We're
me
swampy
to that.
here.
Yeah, because I remember now. I already knew the song Sex Beat, and we were gonna, jam on it that one time. But you take that more the punkish, and again, you're not quite sure what you're gonna get, thinking, not realize, oh, it's the same band. Oh shit. But one thing that stuck out to me the most, particularly with Call Up the Thunder, he kind of reminded me like if Jeff Buckley were doing punk, it'd be Jeffrey from Gun Club, basically.
Yeah, I could see that. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, there are definitely some vocal acrobatics going on.
Yeah, that's just
but like
really surprised.
a lot of passion, and he has this voice where he could sing deep, kind of almost in a Morrison way sometimes, and he could scream like hell, and sometimes he hits these really interesting harmonics in his throat.
Well, he had that
like the
primal
polyphonic
scream like
singing.
Morrison had, which is interesting.
So it's cool, definitely cool shit.
By the way, I mean, you talk about the Merc, but I can hear all the instruments, and there's some awesome freaking bass playing on this album, and you can hear it really clearly. Rob Ritter, who was in the band 45 Grave and later passed away, and Jeffrey Lee himself passed away in '96, I believe. By the way, Gun Club are one of the biggest cult bands of all time. More and more reissues coming out. They were a huge influence on the White Stripes.
Yeah.
So
that's a clear thing.
You know, and he was best buds with Johnny Depp. We won't hold that against him theoretically, but he's held in high regard and more influential than the man on the street would know.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And by the way, on that album, Bad Indian, which is a great song and played on, but that's a particularly good version, other than a live version that's out there on YouTube. I mean, on
There's some good
Apple.
a lot of good live albums too.
Yeah.
Do they have any live of Texas Serenade? Because I think that would be. I feel like it's one of those.
That is a good
somethings-
song.
Yeah, but I also feel like though it's one of those. If you're doing it live, you gotta like be there. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
Yeah, but very dark music, but not cartoonish and really well crafted, and it rocks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good for exercise, I think. I like to listen to Gun Club, out doing whatever, lifting, sprinting, whatever.
I usually listen to it when I'm plotting evil.
Yeah, well, that's helpful.
All right, so who is next? I believe you
it's
were.
me. All right. Well,
we'll
since
move
we,
along.
Mentioned with Mobb Deep, the infamous. So I found that album, actually, around the time when it came out, and I heard the Survival of the Fittest, and at the time, of course, it's a head nod, and I'm a big fan of like East Coast hip hop. I like West Coast hip hop too, but there's something about the sort of straightforwardness of East Coast hip hop with it's a head nod, and it's just straight to the point, so you can kind of focus more on the lyricism, and that stuck with me. So by the time you go and listen to the entire album, it's dark. It's dark as fuck. Excuse my language, my bad. It is. But it's, again, and not in that corny way, but it's listening to someone's story, and you listen to this whole life, this guy, both of them, listen to their lives, and you feel like you're there. When you just sit, there's another one, get one to lay on the couch and just listen to, and you can see all the imagery, you can see the people who they're dealing with, you can see, the Queensbridge neighborhood, you can see all the struggles and everything that's going on just from that, and the lyricism to me is phenomenal. Havoc and Prodigy just...
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's very well...
It's very powerful.
And I noticed, so that's the 25th anniversary on that album. Are they still playing that, or
Well,
singing?
actually, they broke up, I think, officially in 2015, and then Prodigy passed away 2017. He got sick and due to some extra complications with sickle cell. So,
I was, like I said, I had to get my head in the space where I could, all those rhymes coming at you so fast, it took me a while to get I can decipher this now.
Yeah.
Because they are machine gunning them, and it's amazing they can do that. I like the album. It's really good sounding, that album. It was very influential. A lot of the stuff that I hear when I master hip-hop now, I can hear it. They had they had some live instruments on it.
yeah.
They
and,
like that piccolo snare on it. It may have been a sample, but they definitely like the piccolo snare.
There was a lot of sampling thing. I think Q-Tip from Tribe Called Quest did a lot of production with that as well.
Yeah, some
So it was-
interesting keyboard flourishes and sounds where you're going, what the heck was that?
Yeah, exactly. And still some of those melodies, again, that are enough, that's like a little earworm, but just, you know, you get in that space, you get the head nod, you get in that space, and then you're just instantly transformed. And,
One thing I really like about it too, I like it that it's not super heavy on the sub bass like a lot of hip hop. It's actually pretty light, good, clear production. But one thing is, you know, a lot of hip hop, you'll have great rhymes, but it's just that sometimes. And they have some really great hooks for choruses like Up North Trip, where you can, they're really memorable. It's all of a sudden, you know, or what was the other one I really like? Eye for an eye, your beef is mine. Yeah, where they're just super memorable. So it adds like, you know, a nice melodic thing that's really, you remember the song through that, and then you remember the rest. And then like the vignettes between songs, where they have like the little dramatic scenes between, those are really cool too.
And again, that's one of those elements that puts you right in that place. I think it's the grave interlude, where you hear the shots fired and you hear the guys going after their man who just been shot and trying to, you know, the ambulance eventually come. It's like, no, don't, you know, worry about me. Go worry, you know, take care of your stuff and go see who it was. And it's just like it just puts you right there in the scene. You're in the room watching all these things take place.
And Glock should have given them an endorsement for the number of times they say Glock 9 or my 9 in the album.
But, you know, in a sense of that, you know, there's a lot of cleverness with that, but I almost think that might have taken away from the message if that had, you know, truly...
With too much focus on that,
Because just like with the technically the second track, with the whole intro of like, this is what the album is about, which you don't get a whole lot of that. It's like, this is what the album is about, you know, we're not pretending, this is our lives.
They talk about how, like, bragging about how much money you have and cars and champagne isn't their thing. They want to tell you about street life.
This is what happened, and it's not pandering, because you will have a lot of hip-hop guys now who... You want to talk about the gangster by the time it became really commercialized, and people are talking about, okay, I did this, I did that, but it's like when you listen to this record, you don't feel that. It's like, no, this is their life. This is what happened. This is what went down. This is how they lived.
Yeah.
You know, and I appreciate that with that storytelling that, you know, you don't always see with a lot of hip hop that's super popular now. You have to kind of still go in the underground to pick out those MCs who can just really grab you with the story, a really compelling story.
I mean, you know, I'm typically write like 4 lines and then the chorus, and then you hear this density of words, and I'm like, how'd they write all this? It's just amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. I mean, it flows. I don't know how you could remember it, like if you had to perform live. Like, it's wild.
Well, a lot of people, you know, they keep their rhyme books, just like, you know, songwriters keep their lyric books. I mean, it's a thing, because, you know, they're songwriters.
Yeah.
Poets and songwriters.
It's poetry. I mean, really. It's poetry, sung poetry, basically, I think,
So, good stuff on that.
I'd give that one an A.
Yeah, if you get a chance.
We're not really supposed to be grading, but I'd give it an A.
If you get a chance to, Hell on Earth, that's the album, the follow-up for that, which is pretty epic,
Yeah.
Good?
Yep.
What you got, Ross?
Let's do Stoned Immaculate.
Stoned Immaculate.
So this is the surviving members of the Doors, mainly Ray Manzarek on keyboard and Robbie Krieger on guitar, got together. This came out in the year 2000, so we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of this. But they got together and they pulled in bands that they liked, or maybe that they thought had a kind of a Morrison vibe to them.
Is this like mid-90s, late 90s, something like that?
Well,
or 2000s?
This came out in 2000. Okay. So they probably spent however long it took them, year and a half to actually do it. But I think it's amazing, and it's so obscure, like you're not going to find it on Apple Music.
You won't. Like I said, I looked for it on Spotify, and all I found was the songs.
Individual song,
Not on Tidal.
Not on Tidal.
YouTube.
Yeah.
So why I like it, you know, as a Doors fan, that's, you know, obviously part of it. But I think someone that wasn't even a Doors fan might appreciate most of the songs. Now, some of them are kind of obscure, even for Doors fans. But like, here's an example. Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilot, STP, sings, which one does he sing?
Break On Through.
Break On Through. An excellent version, in my opinion. And I think they liked him because he had a Jim Morrison vibe with STP when he was around. But then they brought in, you know, John Lee Hooker and Bo Diddley. I mean, just amazing. So it was that whole range from the hard-hitting rock and roll to the blues influence. And I think Manzarek and Robbie Krieger wanted to bring that out.
Yeah, and
in
they
that.
played on most
And
of
they
it,
played
so
on
they
most
give
of
it a Doorsy authenticity. I would say that, like, God, they are loathsome, but even Creed sounded good on that album.
They did. Yeah. I know you're not a Creed fan, but, you know, one on there, I think Smash Mouth does a version of Peace Frog that's amazing. I mean, awesome.
Is it as good as their song on the Shrek soundtrack?
Even
Which
though
one?
that was a cover.
Even though that was a cover.
On what soundtrack?
Shrek, the
Shrek.
movie.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know they did.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah.
just messing with you.
Yeah, yeah. That's more obscure than this album.
Oh, no, it's not
No, it's
obscure.
not.
It's a big,
Well,
you hear it
for-
all the time. If you heard it, you go, yeah.
It's pretty ubiquitous in that sense, yeah.
Ubiquitous. Who else? What did you think of the one with the cult singer on it? Because he later did some live shows with them as
Ian
the singer.
Ashbury. I thought that was spectacular. Which one was it on? So the Cult themselves did Wild Child, which is awesome. And then Ian Ashbury of the Cult did Touch Me.
Yeah.
I think he did an amazing job there. And then, oh, by the way, they cut in some, I don't know if this, I don't know if it existed anywhere else, but there's Jim Morrison doing a riff on the Cosmic Movie. And, and that was, I don't think that was
trip,
ever but it was, they had a recording of it. And basically Jim's kind of rapping on, you know, some of his poetry, but it's pretty intense, I thought.
I have to go find like a YouTube of that, I guess.
So what did you think overall, what you heard?
Well, for what I heard, there was just the one song, like I said, because I could only find the one song. But it's like just poetry over music, you know, just truly like reading out from the journal.
Yeah,
And it does kind of put you in that place to really listen to his lyrics and what was happening.
yeah. Did you happen to see the Scott Whalen one, Touch
No,
Me?
I had heard, you know, of it, so I know
Yeah.
of it, not realizing that that was part of like this whole collective.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah,
it was
right,
just,
right.
You know, a lot of artists would go do one-offs of their favorite
Yeah,
artists.
yeah.
and whatnot.
And I like covers in general. Like even the Lemonheads did a cover of Mrs. Robinson. which
That
is-
actually was
is
that,
pretty
that
awesome.
was pretty
you know.
good. That was pretty.
Yeah,
pretty
so
spot
I
on.
like covers in general. So this is kind of that, you know,
Yeah.
that vibe going on a little bit.
So you said you found a YouTube though, so I guess I can get.
I
the
just
whole-
had to look them up by, I
Okay.
looked up the tracks on the album and then tried to track them down on YouTube.
Okay.
So at least about 5 of them were there. So, Doc, your next choice for us. Tell us about Opeth.
Oh, I thought you were gonna do about the other one you picked.
No, you do Opeth.
Okay, all right, cool. Swedish progressive death metal. All right, so I love Opeth. It's one of those bands who I just kind of like fell into. Like you listen to other bands, you're like, okay, but they always made me feel a certain. I can't quite even put a word to the feeling, but you know, it's like something's kind of not uneasy, but definitely something powerful and palpable, and just that kind of pulls you in. And then just so happened, a friend of mine had a copy of the Watershed that she gave me, and I was like, well, thank you, because I love free stuff, you know. And I just listened, and again, you get lost in it. And also, like, sometimes you can't tell where some songs end and some begin, but it's still continuous in a way that it all makes sense. It's like listening to different movements of classical pieces, and you're not sure what's going to go next. And it really does, like, take you, like, on the sonic journey. And I also love that a lot of the songs are like 5, 7, 8 minutes long, you know, like some old Led Zeppelin type of stuff.
But you know what I liked about the album? Some of the songs were that long, but there weren't too many songs.
Yeah.
It was still like
Well, Watershed was more, I guess.
it wasn't like
that.
one of those modern albums that's like 70 minutes long. It felt like it was more like 40 minutes. So I felt like while the songs were long and flowed into each other, as a work it was concise and you could
Yeah.
get it in a car drive.
Yeah, yeah. And Lotus Eater is definitely one of my favorite ones because it, you know, it goes from really subtle and then it gets kind of crazy. Then you kind of get this sort of Nintendo, you know, tech metal breakdown with it, and then it just keeps going. But like I said, it's all concise and it all makes sense together. It's not like these random strips of paper that I just put together. It's just tactical, for sure.
I kind of, well, the musicianship is A triple
Oh my
plus.
God.
Oh my God. On every level, singing everything. The album's interesting in that there's not as much Cookie Monster vocal on it. There's a mix of the deep vocal, growling vocal with really soaring melodic vocals. A lot of melody on it. Some really nice acoustic guitar work.
Yeah.
It does flow like you're almost listening to a you are listening to a unified work. It's not the type of thing where I would pick out one song to go get aggressive or go out to
No,
party.
it's just you have
It's more
to-
of an experience.
Exactly. And I think having such a short set in general lends itself well to that. Like you said, you don't want 12 songs, to do that. I don't know. I'm not going to say you don't want it that much, but sometimes, you want to just be able to just get lost in it, not fall off the cliff somewhere. My only caveat to that, going back to the Chris Cornell album, that one you are supposed to listen to from beginning to end. You cannot skip around because of the way the tracks are kind of laid out. They bleed into each other. And in a way, the Opeth record, it doesn't exactly do that, but sonically, it kind of does that, so I wouldn't recommend skipping around on that.
I'll keep that recommendation in mind.
What do you think about it, Ross?
So to my horror, as we were sitting out front and I was looking through the
Confession
list,
time.
right? Somehow it dropped out of my. So I am gonna probably on the way home tonight or tomorrow I will listen to it.
You will
But
enjoy.
It
Yeah.
somehow dropped out, and I don't know how. So I apologize. I did
Hey,
not.
it's all good.
It's okay.
Yeah.
If we do this again, we'll have more time up front, so we're a little more
Yeah, because we
organized.
had about a week, so this is a lot to review. But
There's
it
one
wasn't
thing
intentional. It just I don't know what happened.
See what happened was.
Well, I'm going to give a quick spiel on my other album. I did the, what did I do? Now I can't remember.
Oh yeah, Segall, they won it.
Yeah, which one was it? Now I can't remember. I'm under pressure.
Taste is the name of the song.
Yeah.
That's on it. Yeah.
Ty Segall Taste.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So Ty Segall makes 80 billion albums. He's an awesome guitar player. Everybody knows that. I think some of the things you hear typically about Ty Segall hold true. T-Rex, Mark Bolan influence, vocals, some of the guitar, likes a little glam action. Also with the acoustic numbers, because there were a number of nice acoustic numbers on this album, Zeppelin 3 influence where they were more acoustic, which is my favorite Led Zeppelin album because it's not played to death, Led Zeppelin 3. Was it, interestingly enough, and I got some of this from my research, he's known as being a guitar god. He actually played mainly electric bouzouki, a Greek stringed instrument on here, and then cranked it through his amps and effects as usual. There are a lot of interesting, he's always good with this, but a lot of interesting keyboard sounds, found sounds like that. And, it's not as rock and roll as Manipulator, an earlier album from about 6 years ago, but it's a really interesting album. It's still got his lo-fi, semi-lo-fi garage edge. And let's see, what was the other thing? And I really felt like a lot of it had some krautrock influence in that a lot of the songs seemed to be based around a drum beat, like maybe he played himself a cool drum beat or his drummer did, and then he used that as the basis to write the song because a lot of the songs have really memorable drum parts that you wouldn't have necessarily heard before.
So when did the album come out though? Because I
last
forgot
year.
to. Oh, so this is. It has this. I don't know. There's a little bit of a vintage feel to it.
Well,
I kept
yeah.
thinking, even vintage industrial, rock elements kind of in that. Especially, I think one of my parents, and I think it was a Worship the Dog that kind of had
Yeah.
this weird metallic crunch that was to that.
But then you get all pastoral on some of the other songs.
Yeah, so it's you listen to it and you're thinking, okay, this is kind of familiar, but you can't quite place where you heard it.
Yeah.
That type of thing. So if that was his goal, mission accomplished.
Yeah, I like that, Bruce, and that was the first. I'd never even heard of him until we got the list, and I was like, you know what, this guy's. So the guitar's awesome, but it's more also the lyrics and his voice is good as well.
Yeah, he's strong on melodies too.
Yeah. So I liked it, and like you said, he's got a ton of albums out there. too.
Under different bands, different names, different
Yeah.
everything. He's extremely productive.
Yeah.
Some people wish he'd slow down and maybe take a little more time sometimes, but that's what he likes to do. But it's interesting he didn't really bring out his usual guitar rig on this. He went with the bouzouki and
Yeah.
did a lot of other things.
Very unique.
So before we get to our last album, which is going to be Ross's, once again, we are live from Sound and Music with Recordo Rama. with Ross and Doc. I'm Bruce, your host every
Whiskey
week.
Rat.
Sound and Music. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We swear we're fun. We got lots of good musical acts coming up over the next month or so.
Yeah.
So Ross, what's your
So
last
the last
one?
one we've got, and I just kind of randomly selected this but not really. But this is the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magik. Came out in 1991. And as we were talking earlier, back in the 90s, you couldn't go to a party without Red Hot Chili Peppers playing. And I don't know what they're doing now, but I think a few Super Bowls ago they were playing at the halftime.
Oh, they're still playing and putting out
they're
albums.
They're still rocking, yeah. So this one in particular, I think, it's a good workout album, but it's also, they've done some studies on music and creativity and focus. And for creativity, they say Baroque music played at a low volume. I think stuff like this is what can help you boost focus for things that you already know how to do. And here's an example. A guy I know would play this in the operating room. He's a brain surgeon, would literally jam on this while doing brain surgery. I don't know if they made him stop or not, but the thing is, so say you're doing a document edit, so you know the rules of grammar, you could listen to this and do it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about having my spleen taken out while Suck My Kiss is playing.
I mean, it's unorthodox, but I'm telling you, there's something there. Because it occupies the part of the brain that wants to, and then the part that needs to focus can focus without being distracted. That's my theory on this.
I'll give you that. Now, that album doesn't do that for me, but that's okay.
It's got to be, right. And I think that only works with albums that you know really well, and maybe even grew up with. So, and that's a great point. That technique would not work for anyone that didn't have that background with that music.
And I think for me, why that wouldn't work is because the bass, Flea, I might be an unpopular opinion, Flea made that record for me.
Oh.
Like,
yeah, with the bass, heavy bass, yeah.
Oh man, and it's it's just his technique, his style, the flair, the rhythmic patterns, that he's using.
Yeah.
So it's always, so if that's why I couldn't do surgery doing that, because I'm so busy bopping to the bass and moving my fingers that you got to have a steady hand. So
Right.
I'm going to be more focused.
I thought you were
going
to say you couldn't use it because it sucked.
Oh no! No, it is a really great album, and of course, when I first heard it, you're not really thinking, you're listening as a fan, not listening as like a music nerd. So of course, again, a lot of head nodding, and you just listen to and I'm a fan of Bootsy Collins and P-Funk and all that. So I hear these bass lines, and I'm just kind of sucked into that. Everything else, almost be damned, almost.
Yeah.
The first song, is more like a protest song in a way. It's still kind of relevant with stuff going on. So you get into those lyrical elements of it, but for me, that record is, I'm gonna be distracted. I'm just be distracted doing some other stuff.
So you guys are the music nerds. What did you think about it musically?
Well, I remember back in the day, because I got all the guitar magazines, and I still do, but there was a lot of articles as they were making it, and they were recording it in this big LA mansion with super producer Rick Rubin, the big hairy guy. They really came together on it. It's a great sounding album. It's really well recorded. I mean, John Frusciante, great guitar player, really takes a Hendrix influence and does something new with it. But you can tell it's Hendrix influence, but he's putting it in a little bit different context with his own spin. Flea's great. Chad Smith, great drummer. Anthony Kiedis is a great party host. I won't say a great vocalist, but he does what he needs to do.
Yeah.
So, and the album was 91.
Yeah, 91.
Was ubiquitous. I mean, it was
Everywhere.
Yeah.
all the time. The videos were great. It was an event album. It was a landmark album at the time.
So yeah, I would definitely get with that. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of the bass for Flea's work.
Flea, yeah, he's.
My only problem with Flea is I feel like he's awesome, but too many people copied him and.
I mean, that's what happens when you're awesome. It's just what's the whole thing? Robert Plant say he don't ever want to hear anybody else take on Stairway to Heaven. I think the one exception was a Nancy Wilson who had sang in the
Well,
Hall
yeah,
of
that
Fame,
was
and
an
that was
awesome
like,
version.
yeah. But other than that, he's not trying to listen to anybody else do his stuff. I'm sure, Flea's like, okay, yeah, great job, all right, and then just walk away.
Cool. Well, we got to finish up, but once again, we're live from Sound of Music. I'm Bruce. This is Ross. This is Doc. Thanks for listening to us ruminate about some of our favorite albums. Please subscribe to the channel. Come to Sound of Music and record. Good night.
Cheers.
Good night, everyone.
WSOL